Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 290 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. With Olexiy Arestovych, advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. In today's stream, they discuss situation on the front, the burning line on the Eastern Front, problems of the infantry offensive, probability of Bakhmut falling into Russian hands, Iranians' UAVs attacking south of Ukraine. In Odessa region, the energy infrastructure has got another hit, and the plight of convicts in Russian military, their motivation, and are they indeed the last resource of Putin's regime? Also, they touch upon the strikes on Russian military objects on the Russian territory, and what's happening in Crimea, as well as Erdogan's plans to visit Moscow and Kiev. Enjoy! Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Saturday, December 10th. It is 4 minutes past 10, actually past 8 in Kiev, and 4 minutes past 9 in Moscow. Today's stream is in a bit unusual time. It is day 290, and we're glad to see you here with us, Olexiy, on Saturday. I remind you that we decided to conduct an experiment today, or perhaps give you all a favor because of the soccer match today between France and England. And we decided to try to move our stream 2 hours earlier to see how it works. Today we have about 50,000 people watching us at the beginning of the show, so that's definitely below the usual mark. So if you don't mind, please click that like button, help us promote it to YouTube's recommendations, and also share links with your friends, the ones who may be missing today because they're used to us going live in a different time. And do not forget to subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovich, and of course to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. Alright, Olexiy, let's take a look at the map. What happened? Can you share? Okay, let's take Kherson. Do you see Golая Пристань? The naked port, Golая Пристань. And if you follow the line to about 7 o'clock, there is a small settlement called Chulakivka. Here it is, started to show up on the map. Yesterday we hit the camp of mobilized troops there, over 500, 300 wounded, 100 dead, according to preliminary estimates. How did they die? What happened? Well, they were preparing, they had a military encampment there, and we hit them with our long-range artillery. What about that island that you talked about? Are they still there? They are there. We are working on them. Unfortunately, we do not have much of the intel coverage on the island, but they're definitely being taken care of. Another area, Melitopol. Let's take a look there. We continue hitting Melitopol as well. I remind that this is a key to all defense of that southern region. It is a transport and logistics and railroad hub. Everything that gets to Russian forces, all ammo and resupplies, they usually go through Melitopol or through the Crimean Bridge sometimes. But this all hangs on Melitopol. If Melitopol topples, the whole defense falls in Kherson area, and Ukrainian military get to the bottleneck of Crimea, and perhaps Mariupol may also hang on for a little bit, but not for long. They are stockpiling a ton of different supplies in Melitopol, and for the third day in a row, they, for some whatever reason, keep booming and going kaboom and evaporating. And also, the port of Berdyansk is being targeted, and a bunch of military equipment and warehouses are being hit there. So now let's go to the Eastern Front. Marinka, Avdiivka, Kamenka, and Bakhmut, and a little bit of Solidar. That's a burning line, so to say. But burning, one needs to see the perspective. Usually it's groups of below the platoon level. Very rare occasions it maybe is a group of several platoons, but usually it's smaller numbers. Near Solidar and Bakhmut, they continue these attempts several times a day, and they sometimes use aviation as well. And they still have enough artillery, even using some of the guided munitions there, like Krasnopol. Although one needs to understand that Russian artillery is somewhat beaten up, they don't have too much ammo, and their guns are also worn out, so they're not too precise. But there are about 12 battalion tactical groups well equipped with artillery and with aviation support. They still manage to move for about 100 yards a week and lose thousands of people while doing that. So it is a pretty hard situation there. Sometimes their infantry is supported with tanks and artillery. They usually try to shell us first with artillery and then send their infantry. If the nerves are strong, we sit the artillery out, and then fend off the infantry. What's the problem with infantry offensive? It's rather easy to hold it at bay. If you have good intel set up, you see them in advance, it's pretty easy to shoot them and push them back. But even the smallest disorganization in service, when you missed their motion, or when you miss their approach, the moment they jump to the front and jump in your trenches, those fights become really hard. And the ones who are attacking, they usually have advantage in trench warfare. The defending ones need to have really steel nerves, and usually it's the problem because if you fail to organize a proper intel, a proper monitoring of the field, that means that you're not really well prepared, and then your trench action usually turns out pretty sour. So that's what's often happening there. There's a mix of different troops. There's a mix of different commanders. Some who are more experienced, they set it pretty well, and they hold their positions by months without falling back anywhere. The others who are a bit less prepared, they sometimes have to fall back, and then more experienced ones come back in and push the enemy out. So looking at all that, I think the general trend is that they will not take Bakhmut. It is hard there, but I don't see them taking it. Then Belogorovka, where Russians initially said they completely, so to say, liberated Lugansk region, and we pushed them back and got Belogorovka and some more parts. So they're continuing to try to, again, in quotes, liberate Lugansk region and push us out of Belogorovka, but the efforts there are a little weaker than near Bakhmut. But there's definitely some action happening. From Svatova to Kremenaya, so here from a junction up top at about 11 to Kremenaya, middle of the map. They try to push, but they fail, and we continue controlling the road. In some parts, we actually put that thoroughfare through from Svatova to Kremenaya under our fire control. So they have serious issues using it for resupply, and they need to use Starobelsk, which is far out at 2 o'clock, on about the same level as Svatova, that orange line going to the right. So that's a very long shoulder for logistics and very uncomfortable, very difficult supply route for them. And they continue shelling our cities from the north, although they do get hit back when they're getting too active, even though they're shooting from Russian side. And yesterday we had Shaheds attack in the south. A few of them flew towards Odessa and hit some energy objects there. So that's about it. We have about 130,000 watching us now. We've been 9 minutes live, and we do hope that this experiment with early time to become a success. So please remind those who usually watch us or who forgot that we're going live early today to join. So please be active, help us promote that stream. I understand some of you may be distracted by the World Soccer Championship, but that's just as important, one can say. So another video, we want to comment on that. This is very brief. Let's watch it and discuss it. Hey guys, we're from Kuzbas. We're from prison colony 29. We're getting prepared, getting trained. Everything is cool. Don't listen to what they say in the internet. Mothers, let your sons go. Let everybody come and join us in the fight. We'll earn medals. Everything will be cool, 100%. All right, Olexiy, we showed that video before. We cannot quite figure out who exactly these people are. They are saying they're from Colony 29, but they don't look like Wagner people. I wonder if that's a Ministry of Defense recording. Thing is, not long ago, they allowed for inmates legally to join the ranks of Ministry of Defense as soldiers. I don't know what their official full status is, mobilized contractors, but I guess it doesn't matter for them. So criminals who, instead of serving their term in prison, they're given guns and sent to the front. And they're saying now everything is good, don't be afraid, moms send their sons to fight with us, together with us. And that message is apparently addressed not only to inmates, but also to possible mobilized troops. That looks like a fresh video, and if indeed is true, we understand Wagner has, of course, a bunch of inmates, but that's a whole other setup. It's a private company that is not exactly private, and the way they behave, the way they dress, the way their discipline is a bit different. And this one does appear to be a Ministry of Defense recording, which was unfathomable back in the USSR terms, that prisoners will be sent to the front. And of course, these are possible body bags, still sitting and smiling, but please comment on that. The appearance of these people with active time to serve that hasn't been cancelled or pardoned yet, how can that change or affect anything on the front? Maybe to the worse, I don't know. There were also a lot of conversations about similar initiatives in Ukraine, the ones who actually have military specialty, who are serving their time in Ukraine, that if they want to, they can be allowed to fight on the front. So tell us what you know about that. Let's separate my answer in two parts, Mark. First, in Rostov region, there was a man caught wearing military uniform who was using machine gun on police. Yes, I heard that, in Novoshakhtinsk, right? In the forested area. He was captured, and you as an attorney, imagine you are present during the interrogation. So the question to him would be, why are you wearing military uniform? Where did you get the machine gun? What do you think he says back? What do you think his answer is? He'll need to provide some document, right? Right, okay, so I am John Smith, and so. Oh, but you are a prisoner. According to our documents, you are supposed to be in penal colony numbers such and such. Why are you here wearing military uniform, and why are you shooting up the police? What do we write? Did he run away? Or is he a soldier of military of defense? Formally, so that specific episode supposedly was Wagner troop, so private mercenary company. But if he is a Minister of Defense, then he is a serviceman, he is a contractor. And if he is Wagner, who is that? What's his legal status? So what do I write in the protocol if I'm a police investigator? Is he a runaway from colony? Is he a contractor? They probably call it something. Allowed out by contract to leave the penal colony number with a still active prison sentence. Imagine the headache for logistics for the local police. And that's one side of it. The other is, why are they pulling in so many inmates? Why don't they call upon normal Russian men who are not in prison? There is a reason behind that. Inmates is a very compromised social group, and Putin's regime playing on that weakness of that group, on certain weak parts that they can exploit with that group, can provide for their motivation. And motivation is actually pretty simple. You either put on this uniform, here are your 3 clips, and you go there, no grenades, you just keep walking on these machine guns on the Ukraine side and see if you can get them. Otherwise, we execute you right here at the spot. So if you, for example, have some manager of Moscow Electric, whatever, who was mobilized, and just shoot him as well, execute him, do you think there'll be any consequences? There should be some, right? There will be his friends asking questions. There'll be his wife probably running and protesting, running to foreign correspondents, going online. So you'll have to negotiate and talk to her and try to push that thing under the carpet. And what if many people refuse to serve or refuse to fight? That's a big problem. And now put an inmate in that stead who was due to spend 10, 20 more years on a heavy article. If he refuses, he gets executed at the spot. Who cares about him? Usually nobody. They are outside the law. Despite all these contracts, they're not, or don't appear to be legal citizens in this case, with their legal rights and everything. So Putin's regime, Putin's machine, found that layer of society which they can rather easily motivate without consequences to go and die in those attacks near Bakhmut. And that also means another thing, that they're failing to make mobilized troops to go fight near Bakhmut. That means that Russian infantry doesn't have stormtroopers. They have a little bit of airborne and special forces and some motorized brigades that still are capable of doing some offensive maneuvers, but the main group that is attacking us on the Eastern Front is the group of inmates, essentially, because they have to choose between immediate death at a spot where they refuse, or maybe death a little later on the front. That means that the main part of Russian army is extremely demotivated, and they don't want to attack. And they can't even do effective defensive maneuvers as well. So that means that that whole campaign will last as long as they have inmates to throw into the fire. They failed to organize and push mobilized troops into complex military operations or into the ones that have very high risk of death, such as storming enemy positions up front, going straight onto Ukrainian machine guns. They don't have anybody besides inmates to send on them. They basically put them at a choice. You either immediately die right now, or maybe you are lucky and go there and fight, and perhaps you can live another day or maybe even 2 weeks. That means when they measured temperature among the mobilized, they figured these people will not be going. So on one hand, they do have a lot of mobilized who they're using to fill the front line, but the other problem is they cannot use them according to their ideation. At best, they can maybe use them for defense. That's why they're grabbing so many inmates, violating a ton of international law, a ton of international agreements, a lot of their own constitutional laws. All that story is pinned upon the inmates and having them as a meat to throw into the grinder. And all they're doing really is trying to capture a little better positions for the future defense and political defense as well. Now they're saying they're already scraping the barrels down at the colonies in the far east of Russia. What will be later? Well, that's it. I think that's the end of the barrel. And that Russian strategy will continue as long as they have these inmates whom they're utilized en masse over our guns. Because Russian military otherwise has very limited capability. And the only means they have for offensive are dumb frontal attacks, because they don't have artillery, aviation, to undertake anything more combined and more sophisticated or proper operation. They can just do blunt frontal offensive maneuvers. And even those only with a special group of servicemen who they also run out pretty fast of. So when they run out of these inmates, and they'll probably call upon the second or third wave of mobilized, and they'll fail to send them into any offensive, that's when the story will end. And when we switch into offensive mode, they will topple. They're not ready to fight that war. All right, we've been 20-something minutes live. 166,000 joined us, 65,000 clicked the like button. Let's scroll through the main news that are noteworthy. United States are not asking from Ukraine to not hit Russian territory anymore. New York Times reporting. The only ask is, and that's what the newspaper writes, the only ask is not to attack persons, specific persons and their families. And Danilov, the secretary of National Security Council of Ukraine, mentioned that they will continue making hits, and if they need to even execute anything in Vladivostok, they will do that in Vladivostok. So I think that follows with the attacks on airports, some of the strategic bombers, and some military objects in Saratov region and other regions close to the front line. So if, let's say, we always have to put an asterisk here, if Ukraine has drones, that they can choose any target on the territory of Russia wherever they can reach. I have a question here, Mark. When was the last time we listened to anyone? Well, there is somewhat a limit of a use of American weapons on Russian targets. Mark, we have never used American weapons on Russian targets. That's all people smoking. And even if in some reality one can imagine that we are hitting them with some weapons, theoretically, not a real situation, we don't even need to use American weapons to do that. We have our own weapons to conduct these operations. Maybe not that much, but we do have some. So we don't need to use American weapons to attack Russian targets on the Russian territory. There is no subject for escalation here. And we're not going to be playing the game anymore when they're hitting our goal and we only defending it. Simple defense will never give us victory. It can only succeed if we combine it with offensive actions, so that's what's coming out of it. And I should remind that Millerova airport attack actually was conducted during the first days of war with some suspicious means. Right? I don't think it was the first exactly day of war, but maybe second. But yeah, it was right there. So we never really fretted. Whenever we had good targets to hit, we did. But that, that was in the media. That narrative was present. So if Americans will officially remove their restrictions on using equipment they provide, however we use or see fit, then there'll be maybe a different story. But right now we haven't really listened to any objections to that. And frankly, Americans don't really work like that. They express wishes, they express concerns, but they don't request. No. So why it is important? One way or another, given that your words are indeed supported by facts, there was a thesis that, of course, there are some agreements between Moscow and Washington. Washington is not giving, let's say, certain weapons, and Moscow is not doing something else. There were different theories of what Moscow should not be doing, including not bombing civilian objects on the territory of Ukraine. Even that was part of a thought process. Apparently, that was not true, but there was some noise around that topic.
Это же разные темы. Это абсолютно разные.
This is a different topic, though.
Эта тема, вы не делаете того, мы не даем такое-то вооружение, это совсем не та тема, нежели...
We don't do this, we don't give you certain weapons. That's one agreement. And the other one is if you don't shoot some targets on Ukraine, we will not give them some weapons. That's different agreements with different participants. So if Americans removed limitations of their weapons use, that's one thing. But if they do not object anymore, that doesn't really have any legal weight. Well, the press is writing that. Well, here, then ask that press, Mark, from me. I'm sitting here, a Ukrainian officer, and I have a childish curiosity. What do they mean? Imagine an officer in Ukraine who is fighting, whose sister was killed, whose nephew was raped, whose family is destroyed and houses blown up. And then he is asking, what, you tell us please not use certain weapons? Oh, you're asking to not shoot back? Of course, we'll follow your advice. What's your name? Let's say John, whatever. Yeah, here then Ukrainian officer stands straight and says, thank you. If not you, we, of course, would be bombing them throughout, and we would even be chasing individual commanders and their relatives. But you're now telling us what to do, and with your guidance, we'll listen and do certain things and not do other things. Just make your wish. So is that what American press is writing? Is that the picture they describe? You know, some of these publications do not fully realize the specifics of what's going on. Removed objections. Interesting. Interesting limitation for us in terms of objection. Anyway, this is one of the news that was up today. Of course, all that has meaning. If they remove any limits on the use of their weapons, that'll be a whole other story. But, okay, we do have still, Olexiy, we still have an open question. After what happened in Saratov and Ryazan regions, how much would you bet on Moscow conducting another missile volley on the territory of Ukraine? I don't know, let's say 100 missiles, out of which some number will be shot down, understanding that there will be an answer from Ukraine by its drones on the territory of Russia. What's your percent of it, probability? You won't believe me, Mark. One Ukrainian general is writing to me, texting, exactly blatantly saying, in this case, it's nice that officer did not just tell the that American counterpart to go take a F himself. Because frankly, the courage of Ukrainian officers on the front doesn't care about what other people think they should be hitting and shouldn't be hitting. Oh, look what's happening. I'm getting live notes here. Bakhchisarai region, some red flares, several booms. In Crimea, there is apparently a full-scale war. Something is flying and hitting targets. How do we live there? It was so cozy and nice. Right, and it's not anymore. That's speaking of what is being used, what is not being used, and where. Now, about percentages. Russian strategic bombers are running out of desire, and for the most part, they're running out of missiles. They maybe have enough for 5 volleys left. Actually, 3, 4. Those who counted the beans, they say 3 or 4 volley stops. But here I personally will increase that and say, okay, let's imagine 5, 6. More rounds. After that, they run out of 555 or 101. They only have maybe Ha-22s left after that. Those are old as mammoth shit, and they were only designed for something else. They were, back in the day, designed to be used against the naval forces, and Jet needed to only get, the bomber needed to get somewhere in the vicinity, shoot it in the general direction of the fleet, and then that missile has a self-targeting system that picks the biggest target, supposedly an aircraft carrier, and goes and blows somewhere near it. Given that it was designed to carry a nuclear warhead, it doesn't matter if it's 600 yards to the left or 1,000 yards to the right. Now, when they're using that on the infrastructure, they fly and look for other targets. So if they shoot at some military target, it goes and finds that one of them found one of our, remember, there was a trade center blown up because it was a big metal roof, big target. It hit that and killed a lot of people. So it's kind of useless to use them on the military targets. They never really hit the goal. So they do have some more precision missiles, but they are of a shorter range. They're maybe 300 kilometers. But they are smaller, and they have lesser of a warhead weight. So the explosive part, the payload, is lighter, and their capability to destroy serious objects or cause any serious damage causes a lot of people to question that, because even if you manage to use them, you need to come closer. The missiles are smaller, the payload is smaller, the damage is smaller. And then the question: what is the perspective of their funny campaign of attacking our infrastructure with these weapons? Either with the ones that fly somewhere in the vicinity of 600 yards, or the ones that are small ones, very similar to mopeds. Mopeds, I think, 40 kilos payload. These probably about 60 kilos payload. Even if they have a direct hit, very questionable if they can penetrate the walls and everything to destroy the inners of the building. So another question coming out of it, even with that, will they be able to conduct 100 missiles over one operation? And frankly, it's not even exactly true. 100 goes into 4 volleys, so to say. It just one, or let's say in 24-hour operation, yes, that would be 100 total. So they probably will continue using that, but first of all, the quantities will diminish. Groups of missiles will be different. Part of them will be very blind and will be flying wherever, and their low effectivity will decrease even below the threshold, go somewhere below the baseboard. So that's the perspective of that story for them. I was thinking about the factor of causing something with Ukraine. Basically, if they will decide to continue shooting missiles at Ukraine, they probably would now start hiding in the bunker, right? Since Ukraine can pay back a little. So every time they make a hit on Ukraine, they need to go dive in the bunker for the next day. Probably, we'll see. Okay, so that poor John is somewhat right. Nobody cares about advice. Yeah, exactly. We will continue pushback. And by the way, But came back to Russia and he gave an interview to Marina Butina, the gal who became famous a few years earlier and was deported or exchanged or whatever, sent back to Russia. So he is back in Russia, and now he's saying that Russia should have started this operation in Ukraine much earlier. He was not saying that any of that when he was in American prison. I wonder if he was shy in presence of big pals in the same ward in prison, and he was sort of concerned about what they'll do to him, and if he'll start singing like Boy George or somebody as a result of his statements. So I think he is now back in Russia, and he's claiming that it was really bad there. Oh, of course, in American inmates, they risk their lives. It's horrible. Their life is Russian roulette. You never know how long you live, if you'll even have food. And now that he is back to the freest country in the world, Russia, he can do whatever. And now he has full freedom to come to Red Square and say that Biden is an asshole. Like in that old anecdote from Gorbachev at Reagan times, right? Anybody can come in Kremlin and say Reagan is an asshole. So, How old is he? How old is Boot, by the way?
Виктор Бут, второй
He's 57 year 1957? No, 1965. So he's relatively young. He still has another 5 years or so to serve. So if he wants to fight in that operation in Ukraine, welcome. Come fight near Bakhmut. We'll even show you the place where he can serve glory in about 15, earn glory in 15 minutes and earn his medal posthumously. Right, I don't understand what's holding him. I actually have a good friend in Bakhmut. He likes these heroes who come there to want to partake in that so-called special operation. They have a ton of those at the front and layers upon layers. So Victor Boot could be a cherry on that pie in that specific location. Well, of course, a short rehab period. However, he gets from prison 10, 12 days, and after that he can join the glorious Putin's operation in Ukraine. And he can prove, not with the word, but with the deed, and take revenge on, as they're saying, on those Americans who are fighting on the front. Specifically for Boot, we can actually find some of the legionnaires from the United States who are fighting on our side, and he can try to take revenge on them in person. Sure, they'll be fighting in the opposite trench. So his health and age definitely allows. And by the way, in Russian conscription points, they don't care about health. In Russian conscription points, they don't care about that. Maybe in your America, they're asking these stupid questions. But yeah, at least, yeah, you know, probably half of the mobilized are even older than Boot at this point, and they can share their experience. What did they say? Watch that video of the penal colonies from Kuzbas. Yeah, that they're not giving up. They're probably even older than him on that video too. Let's see where he was born. Oh, Tajikistan. Okay, Tajikistan is good too. We remember there was a story in Belgrade. There were two guys from Tajikistan shot up 20. So he has an option to either have create a military legend near Bakhmut and sacrifice himself there, or he can repeat the destiny of those two guys from Tajikistan even before getting across the border at the training grounds. And by the way, Nicolas Cage will have another chance to hit the charts with a sequel movie to the Arms Baron and make it Arms Baron 2. There'll probably be 1.5 minutes of preview. There'll be a flight, a return flight from US prison, getting back to Russia, giving a patriotic speech, then some police transporting you to the front, then an overview of beautiful nature, and then you get out of the trench there, raise your hand with a pistol, and look back and say, "Follow me, comrades." And then after that, Robert Wade and that music, right? Oscar and the famous, and fame and glory in perpetuity. So he has 5 years to follow up on these ideas. All right, we've been almost 38 minutes live. Last topic we will discuss today, right before the match that's about to start. There's about 300,000 people watching us, a little less than usual, but anyway, so Erdogan, there was a news that he is going to visit Moscow and then Kiev with possible negotiations between two sides and maybe establishing some new means to communicate between Moscow and Kiev. Looks like Moscow is pinging him to come and try to do that. What can you say about that perspective? I think Moscow made him do that. And he, being a very stern politician who always exploits national interests, he found another way to capitalize on that and figured, well, if all it takes is just another visit to Moscow, where he's being recepted, he's getting pretty warm reception, and then visit Kiev, where he is being received even warmer, and he'll probably figure a way to discount Russian gas by another 25%. So, of course, he'll go there to defend national interest of Turkey, and he'll probably defend them in a manner that we shouldn't even worry about. So the perspective of the outcome of the trip is a zero. Well, for Erdogan, it's definitely not a zero. I think he will definitely push for a new deal with Russia, and we might get maybe more armored vehicles, more Bayraktars, that some find ways to somehow get to our front line. All right. Good luck to Erdogan. And if he manages to bring Viktor But to Bakhmut as a part of his trip, we'll say very big thank you. Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, so 40 minutes live, 200, almost 300 are watching us, 80,000 click the like button. Please continue sharing links to that stream. Looks like most people will be watching that recorded. Please continue clicking the likes. I think it was fun today. I hope those who missed it live can watch it later, and those who are listening in English will watch it about 12 hours later. This is very important because we're approaching the number of about 2 million something subscribers, and subscribe to Olexiy Arestovich channel, and of course to Privateer Station, if you are listening or watching that in English. Mark, by the way, why aren't we commenting soccer? Did you know that Morocco won Portugal? Portugal is in despair. In soccer, there is a whole change of epochs happening. You know, we can just switch after our daily stream, turn on the soccer and continue talking. I think at current level of popularity of our stream, we can address anything. We can take a look at the Artemis program or soccer or whatever. And I think the commentary will be matching what we have to talk about Kherson region. Right? We do have a final on Sunday. So we might as well tune in on Sunday and just have some fun. Oh, is it tomorrow? No. Next week. Now it's quarterfinal, then semifinal. And then, yeah. So comment in chat. What do you guys want to say about it? The usual, yeah, we'll follow the usual stream, right? We start at the bottom of the field and then going up and to the right and follow what's happening. It'll be a comical stream. No, I'll keep my face. I'll try to be as serious as I can be. And I can even comment for what the enemy is thinking on the other side of the field. All right, anyway, that's Hillary's proposition. Thank you, Olexiy. Thank you, viewers. Again, have fun watching quarterfinal, France versus England. And write what do you think about our little experiments here. We can maybe comment on that or on Oscars this year. That'll be a fun enterprise, Mark. All right. See you. See you later. See you, dear viewers. Bye.